EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. House Chairperson, the EFF rises to note and welcome the departure of the 49 self-proclaimed Afrikaner individuals who have chosen to take up residence in the United States of America. These individuals have decided to take up residence in the US under the Afrikaner Refugee Program created by the administration of Donald Trump under the false pretense of providing refugee to Afrikaners who are under the impression that they are persecuted because they live under a democratic government which prioritizes redress for the historical injustices of the apartheid. That this House rejects the notion that there is any persecution of any racial group that will warrant refugee-seeking status in any nation, and that redress within confines of the Constitution and rule of law does not constitute discrimination. That this House notes the intervention of the US in a non-existent persecution as part of a campaign to delegitimize South Africa's moral standing to question the genocide of Palestinian people by the Israel state. That this House acknowledges that in the sixth administration, the National Assembly resolved on the closure of the Israel embassy and cutting of ties with Israel. That this House commits to continue to stand with all oppressed people of the world, regardless of manufactured and non-existent claims of the persecution of any racial groups, and further considers the 49 self-proclaimed Afrikaner refugees as individuals who have denounced their citizenship in South Africa and should they have their citizenship revoked. Thank you.
Thank you. The IFP.
Honorable Speaker, corruption within South Africa's Department of Home Affairs is not just an administrative issue, but strikes at the heart of our nation's identity and security. The recent dismissal of 18 officials for offenses ranging from fraudulent ID issuance to sexual harassment underscores a systematic problem that demands urgent and decisive action. These officials were entrusted with safeguarding our nation's records. Instead, they exploited their positions, compromising the very systems designed to protect us. Such actions not only erode public trust, but also pose significant risk to national security. Harsher sentences must be implemented for those found guilty and corruption within Home Affairs to restore faith in our institutions and deter future misconduct. Only through stringent consequences can we hope to eliminate the culture of impunity and ensure that our civil services operate within the integrity and transparency that South Africa deserves. While the department efforts to root out corruption are commendable, the measures taken thus far may not be sufficient deterrent. The fact that some officials receive mere warnings or short suspensions send a message that the consequences of corruption are manageable. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Being patriotic is foreign to the DA. Once again, the DA's lack of patriotism in the country it behoves to serve is on full display. Despite being part of the GNU, the DA sees it fit to question and downplay South Africa's intervention in the Democratic Republic of Congo after reports that the United States government is on course to broker a peace deal between rival groups in the region. The DA believes that Washington's intervention was more fruitful than the SADC peacekeeping mission. Their view is that while South Africa and other SADC nations have struggled for years to resolve the crisis, the United States brokered a deal in record time. The withdrawal of our troops from the DRC, rather than being seen as an outcome of the great momentum of high-level peace efforts by various actors, which included a peace agreement signed between the government and the M23 movement, having been brokered with the support of the SADC, the African Union, and the East African Community, the DA rather believes that the mediation was purely because of Washington. This is a clear indication of how the DA works against its own government and people, and with the flag-burning incident during the run-up to our elections still fresh in our minds, the unpatriotic behavior is perhaps the only consistent posture of this party. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The ACDP.
The ACDP is shocked by reports that many government departments have employed foreign nationals in strategic and sensitive positions that could pose a serious public risk, security risk. South African National Security Secretariat has raised concerns about hiring foreigners in sensitive roles that might even aid foreign espionage in government departments. The ACDP calls on the Speaker of the National Assembly to demand that all ministers must ensure that their departments employ more locals than foreign nationals, because some government departments seem to be favoring foreign nationals over their own locals. This is wrong, Speaker. As an example, we fail to understand why a Zimbabwean national was appointed as Chief Heritage Officer when there are hundreds of South Africans who spend years on Robben Island and can successfully serve as the Chief Heritage Officer of that UNESCO World Heritage Site and popular tourist destination. South Africans, many of whom are unemployed, deserve better, Speaker. While the ACDP supports employing the best qualified person for the job, this should start with our locals because of high unemployment. These positions, we believe, will help to reduce high unemployment if they are given to locals. Thank you.
Thank you, the DA.
Honourable Speaker, the Democratic Alliance would like to bring to the attention of this House that since PEPFAR funding was withdrawn at the end of January, thousands of patients facing healthcare workers supporting vulnerable people living with HIV and TB have lost their jobs. As a result, data shows that fewer South Africans are being tested for HIV, meaning that more HIV-positive South Africans do not know their status, undermining the 95-95-95 targets and putting at risk the gains we have made in the fight against HIV. The DA initially praised the Department of Health for the memo sent out by the Director General on 11 February that gave clear and sensible guidance to provinces and health facilities about how existing resources within clinics should be utilized to minimize the impact of funding cuts. However, it now appears that more than 3 months later, hardly any of the measures outlined in the memo have been implemented. Most notably, 6 months dispensing of ARVs to stable patients is not available anywhere except for a few clinics in the Western Cape, and the 28th late collection allowance for external ARV collections has not been implemented. We urge the Minister to ensure that the measures set out in the memo that will not cost the department a cent, but will make a massive difference on the ground, are implemented as a matter of urgency. We further continue to urge the Department of Health to find funding to support PEPFAR NGOs and suggest that as a start, the 20 million rands allocated this year to advertising NHI is immediately redirected. I thank you.
Thank you, UDM. UDM.
Sorry, Speaker, my gadget froze. I beg your pardon. I apologize. It is time for us to confront the glaring disparities in our nation, disparities that continue to perpetuate inequality despite the promises of a better life for all. We can no longer tolerate the slow pace of transformation. The 34% employment equity compliance rate is a reminder that we are far from the goal of true equality. While South Africans control over 62% of top management positions and men hold 73% leadership roles, the system remains stacked in the favor, especially of whites. These systemic issues are rooted in apartheid's legacy, where education, skills, and economic opportunities were denied to the majority. The statistics of Black South African learners attending under-resourced schools reveal ongoing disparities. The merit-based systems that some are proposing only serves to entrench these privileges, ensuring that the few continue to dominate leadership positions. There are also those who seek to escape the transformation we are fighting for by moving to the United States of America as so-called refugees in a new form of migration being dubbed as the Great Trek. Mabahambe asibadingi apha ngamashekelele kakade. These Afrikaners are not fleeing violence, but fleeing equality itself. These individuals are moving abroad under the false pretenses of persecution. They are not refugees. They are fleeing a South Africa that strives for justice and inclusivity. They are running away from a country determined to heal and to become more equal. The
Thank
truth
you,
is, these
Honorable
people are
Member. Your
driven by
time is
apartheid
up.
nostalgia.
The
Mahambe
ANC.
lamasela.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The ANC calls for an immediate investigation into the shocking and unauthorized visits by members of the DA, ACDP, and PA to apartheid Israel. This so-called fact-finding mission was not approved by DIRCO or Parliament. These MPs met with Israeli authorities while our own government is leading a genocide case against the very same colonial state at the ICJ. This visit is not just irresponsible, it is a betrayal of South Africans' constitutional values and our historic solidarity with the people of Palestine. This trip echoes the shameful tactics of the country's apartheid past, where the National Party invited foreign delegations to whitewash a system of racial oppression and white minority rule. Today, some MPs in this very house are playing the same role for a regime accused of genocide and of war crimes. What facts are they hoping to find when over 60,000 Palestinians have been killed, millions displaced and injured, entire cities flattened, and a famine and rape used as a weapon of war? The ICJ has already ruled a plausible case of genocide exists. So what more is there to fact find other than to justify crimes against humanity? Let us be clear. Apartheid is not a matter of opinion. It is a crime against under international law and defined and recognized by Human Rights Watch, Beit Salem, Amnesty International, and affirmed by the UN. Israel is practicing apartheid. For the South African MPs elected in a country that has endured the brutality of apartheid, to fraternize with—
Thank you, Honorable Member. Your time is up.
Shame on
MK.
you. The South African people see which side of history you stand
Order,
on.
Honorable
Free,
Member,
free
your time is up.
Palestine.
MK Party.
Somlomo ohloniphekile. Namhlanje ngisukuma egameni lomkhonto wesizwe Party. Ngithulele isigqoko abadlali, abagqugquzeli kanye nabalandeli abenze umdlalo wamanqamu we-Nedbank Cup ka-2024 waba ngumdlalo kazwelonke.
Order, Honorable Member.
Umphumela ovusa amadlingozi ka-2-1 usikhumbuze ukuthi ibhola lingaphezu komdlalo lingamandla okuletha ubumbano nenjabulo ezweni lethu. Einkundleni zemidlalo nasezindaweni zethu zokuhlala eNingizimu Afrika yonkana, abantu bakithi babehlangene ndawonye bengahlukaniswa amaqembu noma imibala, kodwa behlanganiswe uthando nokuzigqaja. Njengomkhonto wesizwe Party asithathi hlangothi emqhudelwaneni yamaklabhu, kodwa sibungaza umoya wobungcweti bezemidlalo kanti nentsha yethu isivezela ikhono elikhulu bayaqhubeka njalo nokusikhuthaza. Sinxusa uhulumeni kanye nababamba iqhaza ukuthi kutshalwe imali eningi ekuthuthukisweni kwezemidlalo, ikakhulu emazingeni aphansi nasemphakathini entula izinsiza kusebenza. Umkhonto wesizwe Party uyakholelwa ekutheni kulezi ikhathi zobunzima bezwe ezemidlalo zinikeza abantu kakhulu umuzwa wethemba, ukuzigqaja kanye nenhloso efanayo. Siyabonga.
Order, Honorable Members. Order. Honorable Member, is there a point of order?
Not a point of order. Good afternoon, Speaker. I just want to check if Action SA is on the member statement list.
Yes, it
we don't
is.
see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the member of the MK Party was just being happy about the game and the impact of the game. So I don't want to see any signs. Order.
No, the big club has won. The people's club.
Let's not talk about who won and who lost. It's about the game. EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As EFF, we rise with a heavy heart to address the tragic loss of the 15 lives in recent head-on collision on R63 in the Eastern Cape. The horrific accident occurred just days after the Department of Transport prematurely celebrated a decrease in the road fatalities during the Easter holidays. The reality on our roads, as this tragedy shows, tells a different story. The families of those who perished are grappling with unimaginable pain. Their grief is a stark reminder that road safety remains a crisis in South Africa. While there may be reported reductions in death during specific periods, this incident underscores that fatalities remain unacceptably high. Honorable Speaker, we must ask why, despite such celebrations, deadly accidents persist on known hotspots like R63. Is this not evidence of systemic failure in our road safety efforts? Temporary reductions are not victories if the overall crisis continues. This tragedy exposes enduring gaps in enforcement, infrastructure, and driver behavior. We cannot rely on sporadic campaigns.
Thank
or
you,
seasonal
Honourable Member.
interventions.
Your
A
time is
consistent
up.
long-term
The ANC.
strategy is required. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The ANC welcomes the approval by the Minister of Employment and Labour of almost 400 million rands wage subsidy to pay 5,956 SAPO workers for 6 months from the Temporary Employer-Employee Relief Scheme TERS. The wage subsidy signals an important milestone in the ongoing work to rescue, resuscitate, and ultimately future-proof the post office. Since the distressed SAPO went into business rescue, thousands of workers have been retrenched. The TERS funding is a necessary intervention that will safeguard jobs, create opportunities, and strengthen the efforts to resuscitate and stabilize the entity in carrying out its mandate. This intervention reaffirms the ANC's commitment to minimize job losses and work towards revitalizing and sustaining strategic state-owned entities. The ANC commends the Department of Employment and Labour for its commitment in safeguarding jobs and creating opportunities for training and further development of SAPO employees in line with its mandate. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. The DA.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I need to say that job creation is the most effective tool to achieving redress. We only need to look at the disaster that was announced this morning, the loss of jobs. Our country, being one of the most unequal nations on earth, remains a devastating tragedy. There's universal agreement in this House that action is immediately required. If we learn from other nations that have overcome past divisions, from Germany, South Korea, Vietnam to Ireland, the common thread is a growing economy that unifies citizens by giving all a leg up to succeed. Our economy for more than a decade has barely grown, and this has torn at our fragile social fabric. But dividing South Africans according to crude racial categories that have previously inflicted tremendous pain amongst us will take steps back we cannot afford. These measures have clearly failed to bring prosperity to the overwhelming majority of South Africans. They will not grow our economy, deliver jobs, or unite South Africans. Instead, this will lead to more division as we try to slice a smaller and smaller economic pie. The DA is a firm believer in the need for redress as we seek to build South Africa. Redress is economic justice. It is dignity to the previously marginalized communities. It is economic growth. It is good jobs. It is being given the opportunity to thrive. And the most effective tool to achieving this is through an economy that allows South Africans to live to their fullest potential. With a job, you can not only put food on the table for your loved ones, but also invest in the future. A job opens boundless horizons by unleashing human potential. We urge the Department of Employment and Labour to change tack and join us in the mission towards a growing economy that delivers for all, not just the connected few. This Parliament must make it its paramount priority to do all things possible to grow our economy, deliver jobs for South Africans. Having inherited constitutional democracy, we cannot leave rampant inequality for future generations. We have the power here. Let us give South Africans growth, good jobs, and dignity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ANC.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. On Wednesday, 7 May 2025, President Cyril Ramaphosa launched the second phase of Operation Vulindlela reforms at the Union Buildings in Pretoria to unleash more rapid and inclusive economic growth. Operation Vulindlela is a joint initiative of the Presidency and National Treasury to accelerate the implementation of structural reforms and support economic recovery. It aims to modernize and transform network industries, including electricity, water, transport, digital communications. Operation Vulindlela was first established in October 2020 as a joint initiative of the Presidency and National Treasury to accelerate the implementation of structural reforms. In its first phase, the operation focused on reforms in five key areas with a high potential impact on growth and jobs: energy, logistics, telecommunications, water, and the visa system. Up to so far, 35 reform actions were prioritized across these 5 areas, with government departments and agencies taking responsibility for implementation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The Action SA.
Honourable Speaker, while the GNU, made up of 70% of this Parliament, fails to pass a budget, South Africans should look to the example of functioning coalition governance led by Action SA in the city of Tshwane. For the first time in 3 years, Tshwane has tabled a fully funded budget, testimony to the disciplined, principled leadership of Dr. Mnasipi Moya to fix the capital. On its path to financial recovery and sustainability, the new administration has already paid off 1 billion rand of its 6.6 billion rand Eskom debt, a debt accumulated over 8 years by the previous administration and those laughing in the House, and has reduced the debtors book to 13.5%. The city now projects cash reserves of 2.8 billion rand for the 2025-2026 financial year. Tshwane is not just balancing its books, it's enforcing accountability. Every mayoral committee member has signed a performance agreement, something the biggest cabinet in the world has failed to do. This makes service delivery measurable and leadership accountable. Unlike the national GNU, which spent 184 million on travel while economic growth stagnates at 0.8%. These improvements have not gone unnoticed. GCR ratings upgraded Tshwane's credit outlook from negative to positive, and Moody's has acknowledged the city's improved financial management, a rare endorsement in South African municipal landscape. Speaker, coalitions do not have to be chaos. Tshwane proves that. Action SA is showing that we can work in collaboration with other parties to improve
Thank
service
you,
delivery.
Honourable Member.
The contrast is clear.
up.
Where the GNU fails,
Honourable Member,
coalitions work.
your time is up.